you for starters for being here on a Sunday and taking time out of your busy weekend, and participating in democracy. This is the very low litmus test and bar for what it should take to be an elected representative. You should have to meet with your constituents. You should have to openly speak and answer tough questions out in public forums. And we all know that our representative that we have right now is not doing that. She's afraid. She spends more time in Washington, D.C., more time singing karaoke at the bars in Fort Collins than she does being here in our community. And that's really one of the things that, first and foremost, got me involved in politics. Whether it's Lauren Boebert or other representatives that I've had throughout my life, there's a major disconnect between working class voters and between the people that they're supposed to represent. How this is going to work first, we've been doing a lot of these. For anybody who doesn't know, there's 21 counties in this district. It's bigger than 11 states. It's ginormous. So my wife Amber and I we've driven about 10,000 miles over the last couple of months, all over eastern Colorado. We've spent a lot of time in Douglas County. We've spent a lot of time out in the rural communities, out on the Eastern Plains, and we spent a lot of time here in Weld County. So what we're going to do, usually we pick numbers. We didn't feel like doing that today. I'm just going to call on people randomly to ask questions. I'm going to ask that everybody try to keep their question to about 45 seconds. And I will try extra hard to keep my answers to about 2 minutes. What's happened at some of the other town halls that we've done is it kind of turns into a free-for-all, and then some people are upset they didn't get to ask their questions. So if you don't get to ask a question today, make sure you take a business card. It has my cell phone number on it. This is the first one in northern Colorado. We're doing one in Loveland in 2 weeks, and we're going to be crisscrossing the whole district, so you'll have plenty of time to show up. I'd like to just give a little opening introduction to myself, and then we can kick it off into the question format. So I tell everybody, hi, John Padora. I live in Severance with my wife and my 3 kiddos. I'm a manufacturing engineer by trade. I have a background in environmental sciences and geospatial technology. But I'm a normal working class guy that's running for office. And that's something that doesn't happen too often. I'm running to defeat Lauren Boebert. I'm running to make sure that we have real representation in DC. I'm also running to nullify the last 2 years of a Trump presidency, which I know that everybody in this room knows how destructive he's been for our country. When we're talking about the government shutdown, when we're looking at the ICE agents that are terrorizing our communities, when we're looking at the divisive rhetoric, the international conquest that he's going on, the failed trade wars, he is not good for America. So we need to make sure that we have people like me in office that come 2026, when I get in and 2027 and the session kicks off, that I will be a yes vote for impeachment. So I'm running to defeat Boebert, nullify the last 2 years of Trump. And I like to also start by telling everybody that I was a lifetime unaffiliated voter until 2016 happened, until I saw Donald Trump win the White House the first time, until I saw how destructive his policies were. And like so many people in this room, I didn't know what to do. But I called up my local county Democratic Party, and they said, hey, come on in and show up and listen to what we have to say. And I saw a group of imperfect people who wanted to improve their community. And that's what I did. I got involved with those folks, and I started working on campaigns. I worked on county commissioner campaigns, on state senate campaigns. And that's really just how my political career got started. But if we're being honest with everybody in this room, the Democrats lost big in 2024. They're at a historic low right now, right? How many people in here approve of the job that Washington Democrats are doing to represent you? How many people feel that they're fighting for you? You do? Okay, there's a couple, and we'll talk about that more. I want to see, like so many people do, I want to see an actual opposition vote. People that will stand up, that will not fight fascism with lip service, that will not turn around and take money from the same dark money networks that have funded us and gave us Donald Trump on a silver platter twice. I want to see an opposition party. We live in a state here, Colorado, where John Hickenlooper and Michael Bennet are our 2 senators, and they have voted for more, to confirm more of Trump's nominees than any other Democratic senators in the United States. This is a blue state. How does that happen? So we're not here to bash them. We're not here to slam them, but we are here to hold them to a higher standard. We're here to push them to do what they need to do. So, the independents and the disaffected Democrats in this district, they're not looking for watered down DNC talking points. They're looking for somebody who knows the communities, who knows the struggles, who knows what it's like to be like so many moms and dads in our district that are working multiple jobs just to make ends meet, and they're still falling further behind. So I'm running for Congress without an Ivy League degree, without a polished DC resume, but as somebody who has worked double shifts, who knows what it's like to raise 3 kids in the most brutal economy since the Great Depression, and somebody who will bring those working class values to Washington, D.C. I grew up on a farm with my grandfather in southeastern Pennsylvania. Understanding agriculture in this district is huge. CD4 has the largest agricultural output of any other congressional district in Colorado. So until we get somebody that's our nominee that can understand agriculture, we're going to continue to lose. I'd also like to share with everybody a quick personal story before we get started. A lot of people like to ask, like, John, how did you get into politics? Well, politics found me. If you rewind the clock to when I was 19 years old, I was in a really, really bad car accident. Wasn't wearing my seatbelt, my head smashed through the windshield, and I woke up in the ambulance in the most amount of chronic pain that you could comprehend. I went to the doctor, I went to physical therapy, and naturally, like our doctors like to do, they prescribed a 19-year-old boy an ever-increasing amount of opioids. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I found myself wrapped up in that vicious cycle of addiction. I struggled with sobriety, with relapses on and off for years, until eventually I landed myself for 60 days in county prison. And my life felt like it fell out from under me. You know, thank goodness that I had a wife who stuck by me. I got out, I had a community that rallied behind me. I had parents that loved me. I had friends that did everything they could to uplift me. And so I started to rebuild my life brick by brick, one piece at a time. And I found myself hooked up with a local addiction recovery outlet that was working on something called the Second Chance Program. And I felt really inspired because their whole mission was to create a drug diversion program that was centered on keeping non-violent drug offenders out of prison in the first place. People like me that needed rehabilitation. We didn't need a jail cell, and I've met numerous other people that are on the right side of that as well. So I found myself sitting down with county commissioners, state senators, police officers, and championing that legislation in Pennsylvania. I found myself in Delaware, in Maryland, and Virginia fighting that same cause, and it eventually led me to our nation's capital to advocate for that criminal justice reform. So that's how I got involved into politics. Does it matter to me? Because that's how politics should happen to people. You shouldn't prepare your entire life to run for office. You should be active in your community, first and foremost, and then find your footing from there. So that's really the introduction that I'd like to give people. I'm running to offer you real working class representation, and I hope that you all showed up with your hard questions today, and we can start the public part of this town hall, and you guys can hold me accountable. So who would like to start and ask a question? You need the microphone.
No, I can do pretty well back here. My question has to do with agriculture. As you said, CD4 is one of the largest agriculture. It is the biggest agriculture output district in Colorado. What are you seeing? What are you hearing from the various counties that are predominantly predominantly populated by farmers and ranchers and other people involved in agriculture? And how are they being affected currently by the trade policies that are shipping a lot of our agricultural success overseas, particularly taking away our international contracts from China and other parts of the world? How is that affecting us here locally versus, say, Iowa or out in the Midwest where it's predominantly soybean production?
Sure.
And second follow-up to that is, what do you think we can do about it? When you get it.
When I get no, that's great. So yeah, I've been traveling the Eastern Plains and I've been talking with a lot of these farmers. It's upsetting to watch them year after year, cycle after cycle, continue to vote against their own economic interests. The Trump administration is incredibly destructive to agriculture. Their drought. I've been talking to these farmers for years. I grew up with my grandfather. I've known the economic hardships of farmers for generations, but it's at a breaking point right now. When I'm out on the Eastern Plains, they tell me, John, I don't know how much longer that I can continue to hold out. I don't know how much longer that I can make it. The tariffs are like the nail in the coffin for us right now. I mean, no matter what crop they're growing right now, they're losing money. They're losing money, but the biggest thing that's been affecting farmers in the Eastern Plains for at least the last 10 years is the increase in severe weather patterns. They have crop insurance, but the deductibles are high. There's all this red tape and hoops that you have to jump through. A lot of times when farmers lose their crops, they take in less than 50% of their projected profit for the year. How many people in this room could survive if you made half of your annual income in 1 year and expected to pay for it? Right now, what I'm hearing is that they're just drowning. They don't know how much longer that they can hold on. What I think that we can do, for starters, is enforce the anti-monopoly and antitrust legislation that's already on the books. I mean, if you look at the big agricultural monopolies, That's what they've done. They've created monopoly in Eastern Colorado. And even though CD4 does still have a really high ratio and portion of family-owned farms, a lot of them, unfortunately, are forced to sell their land to these bigger agricultural providers, right? Then they have to rent that land back from them. They can't afford to maintain their equipment. They're struggling. They simply don't have the economic means, and they're tired of hearing the chatter that happens in Washington, D.C., which that's really all it is. If you look at the farm bill that we have a lot, the farm bill is great, and a lot of those farmers are really provided support by it. But do you know who gets the most support? It's all those big agricultural monopolies that sit at the top. So I would get into Congress and I would create a farm bill that actually delivered for small agricultural providers, for the family-owned farmers, to cut all of that corporate welfare that's packed into it. We need to rely on the people that feed our communities, not the mega corporations. So I would make that a very central platform of my campaign, is rehabilitating, resuscitating the ability of family-owned agricultural providers in Eastern Colorado. And of course, having a congressional vote to nullify these bad tariffs that are in place right now, because they're not making it any better and they're not stimulating the agriculture. They're going to have to give them another bailout. And right now, short of nullifying Trump in the last 2 years and holding these big agricultural providers accountable, that's where I think we should start. Thank you for your question, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering how you'll support people of color in communities that are dealing with ICE right now.
Yeah, have you seen them around here recently? I've been to Loveland and I've seen them. That's a good question. You know, for starters, like, I think that I could build a coalition when I got into Congress immediately and pass some type of federal legislation that prohibits their ability to wear masks, right? This is America. You're supposed to be accountable. You're supposed to have a warrant. You're supposed to be easily identifiable to people. You're not supposed to terrorize the communities. A lot of this is going to come down to building really strong community-based organizing efforts and coalitions. But as far as from a legislative standpoint, I would vote to defund a lot of the money that has went to ICE. We could repeal a lot of those expenditures that have been created by the Trump administration. There is no reason that we live in a country that doesn't guarantee health care, that pays teachers, slavery wages, in my opinion. And they're offering, what, $50,000 sign-on bonuses to ICE agents. They're offering to pay off their student loans, which, by the way, I thought that was socialism, so why are we doing it? I want to talk about, like, that question, how do we support them? Let's talk about it. Let's get ICE out of our communities. Let's flex our local muscles. Let's organize. Let's make sure that the Colorado state government, the state legislature is on our side, because we really do have power at the state level. But what I can do at the federal level is repeal their funding, make sure that they're not allowed to wear masks, and make sure that we're holding them accountable. We're removing their qualified immunity, that we know when they're breaking the law, that there's more civilian oversight boards, and that those boards are talking with the elected officials, so that I can take all that to Washington, D.C. and make sure that we actually bring some justice back. Thank you for your question. Go with you first, Lee.
What are we going to do to fix immigration? Most of the people they're picking up are here, their documents have expired. They're not here legally. That's not a criminal offense. That's a civil offense. And we are terrorizing people. What are we going to do to fix immigration?
The $1 million question. I look at this as something that both Republicans and Democrats have really, really dropped the ball on for decades. And when I look at the Republican policies, I don't see a party that actually wants to fix immigration issues, that wants to sit down with their Democratic counterparts and solve the issue. I see them that they want that constant fear to campaign on. Because if you don't have a boogeyman, if you don't have an immigrant to scapegoat for all of our nation's problems, then the billionaires get to continue to do what they're doing while the working class gets rummaged out. Like so many people, my family immigrated here almost 100 years ago from southern Italy to escape the slow grip of fascism. So let's build a country again that welcomes immigrants, that doesn't shut them, that talks about their economic input, that talks about how many billions of dollars a year they're paying into our tax system and not seeing any benefits. I would love to see streamlined paths to citizenship. I would love to see the end of the militarized border wall and the way that we deal with it. I would love to give these immigration courts the proper funding to be able to actually get through their case quicker than 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I would like to lower the barrier for the financial amount that these folks have to pay to become legal immigrants. My family got off the ship and signed their papers, and they were citizens. That was it. They came with $20 in their pocket. I know that we're different now, and I know that we still do need to maintain secure borders in a sense. You know, I think everybody here doesn't want to see criminals or drugs coming across our border, but the way the militarization, the way that we're dealing with it, it's completely wrong. So for starters, I would do something very revolutionary in Washington. I would sit down with folks on the other side of the aisle, and I would throw questions and answers and ideas around, and I would co-sponsor or help introduce or do anything that I could do to streamline the immigration process, make it more just, make it more American, and make sure that we're actually welcoming these folks into our country. I don't have the golden ticket of what it would be, but I think so much of it starts with collaboration at the collaborative level. We simply don't collaborate because, oh, if you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, well, I can't be seen working with you. And that's what's wrong with our country right now. So I would try to break into that a little bit.
On a critical thought, what are we gonna do to protect the rights of citizens that are being terrorized by us? I got grandchildren that are foreign, and I fear daily that, you know, they're citizens and parents, yet they've got a fear.
I think we need to recognize that this administration is using fear as a weapon. They're using fear as a weapon to justify more crackdowns. They're using fear as a weapon to continue to destabilize our country, to find a way to incite violence, to find a way to invoke the Insurrection Act, to find a way to nullify the 2026 midterm elections. In the immediate time right now, Americans, all in all, need to remember that we outnumber the ICE agents. We outnumber the federal government. We can shut them down in our communities. It's going to take some acts of civil disobedience to stand up to these folks, to let them know that we're not going to take this laying down. And so much of it just comes from being able to stand on your convictions, being able to take bold stances, being able to publicly speak about it right now, to develop and cultivate relationships with your local district attorneys and ranking law enforcement officers in your communities, and have these important conversations with them. Because I feel that the next year and a half are just going to be continuing to escalate more and more. So I saw somebody in the back. Yes.
Yeah, I work with job seekers a lot, and so I'm really nervous about AI and what it's going to do to the workforce. Do you have any ideas about what we could do when I think about the jobs that are going to get lost or already being lost? And it seems to be what we call the quality jobs.
Sure.
And then the jobs that kind of remain are those essential jobs that can pay well.
Mm-hmm.
We've already got such income inequality, just really concerned me, and I just wondered if you had any ideas of what to do.
I love that question, and I think back quite often to the 2020 presidential campaign, where Andrew Yang stood on the stage and they talked about that. What did he say? We're in the third or the fifth, whatever it is, industrial revolution. Well, it's funny how much of what he talked about now has came to light. I work in high-tech manufacturing. I can tell you that AI has integrated and automation into every facet of our life, that we've been able to reduce our in-person forces by 25%. Right now, there's people that I know that work in these industries that are with bachelor degrees, master's degrees, looking for jobs for the last 2 years, right? We're going to need some type of economic bill of rights here in America to guarantee us, to take us into the future. 25% of the jobs that kids like my children's age, when they're going to graduate, don't even exist yet. By 2030, we could displace as much as 30% of the workforce. But we're going to have to talk about some really revolutionary things: universal basic income. We're going to have to talk about a second, actual economic bill of rights that guarantees certain workers in America certain fundamental principles, because we can't rely on the billionaires. We can't rely on these folks that are continually looking, how do they reduce their profit margins? They do not care how many jobs they lose to AI. They only see that bottom dollar line. That's it. So it's going to take legislation at the federal level to restrain them, to hold them accountable, to make sure that we're taking care of people, meeting their basic needs. People all deserve health care. Housing, food is basic fundamental human rights. And for me, that's the baseline. So I would like to get into Congress and sit down with folks and talk about what that economic bill of rights would look like, how we would restrain these companies, how we would make sure that we own our data, that Meta and all these other companies and ChatGPT and OpenAI, that they don't own our data. You know, because they're selling it off to the highest bidder.
I want to say that one way to get that universal basic income was that our data, they pay us for our data.
How about that?
So it's just
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your question. Yes.
I love the idea of collaboration, and I agree with you that that's probably the only solution for the problems we're having right now. But I just wonder how realistically you would go about that, because we are at a point now where, as you said yourself, you reach out a hand to this person and they're like, I'm out. So really, what does that realistic collaboration look like?
You have to be able to cut through the static and the noise. So much of what you see on television, so much of what you see in your algorithms on social media like to make you believe that you're bipolar opposites from your neighbor on the opposite side of the political spectrum, because they never want us to focus on the similarities that we have. And you're right, it's toxic. I won't underplay that at all. Me, as a freshman Democratic congressman going to Washington, D.C., I'm sure I would meet a lot of opposition, even if I had really good ideas. But there's a small coalition right now of people in the Republican Party that are becoming more and more open to what's going on. I have worked with Republicans to pass that legislation that I spoke about, the Second Chance program. I sat with them in Washington, D.C. I sat with them in Pennsylvania and state capitals throughout the country. I've sat down with these police officers that are MAGA folks and stuff. You have to focus on the issues. There is issues that everybody's passionate about, that they care about. And if you can keep some of that hyper-partisan kind of extremism and rhetoric that gets injected into MSNBC and the national media, you can sit down with these folks and you can work together. Is it a slim minority? Absolutely. But it nevertheless has to be pursued. Democrats have this really almost toxic behavior, I call it. I see it a lot in Colorado, where we like to live in echo chambers. We don't like to put ourselves into uncomfortable situations. Like, I do some of these town halls and I go out to Bend. I go out to Strasburg. I go out to Fort Morgan, to Sterling. It's kind of scary standing in a room with those folks and getting grilled by folks on the opposite end of the spectrum, because we fundamentally disagree on a lot of things. But you know what we do agree on? We agree that America's too damn expensive, that our children and grandchildren should be able to afford health care, food, housing, that education should be attainable for folks. We need to talk about it like that through a kitchen table issues. We need to get away from these big federal spending bills, and we need to talk about what can we do right now, who would my coalition be, and how would I actually work to pass that. So don't feel completely disenfranchised by how it's going. I still have a sliver of hope that if we get the next generation of folks to DC, we can bring back some of that bipartisanship that places allegiance to our country over our party.
Well, as a follow-up, we do need the next generation.
Thank you for saying that.
People that are hanging on to their, I've been here 35, 40 years, are choking the lungs out of all new ideas and all cooperation.
You don't have to tell me, as the youngest candidate in this race at 36 years old, there's a lot of talk by Democratic folks that are high up in the party that they want the next generation and they want young people. But I can tell you what I've experienced. I've experienced a lot of suppression. I've experienced a lot of like, hey, wait your turn, kind of get out of the way. Maybe run for something lower level. You haven't put your time in yet. We're ready. We're ready to take the reins. We just need to have folks like you continue to encourage your representatives and senators throughout the country to step down, to pass the torch, to cultivate that next generation. So we're here, we're lining up, and we're not going anywhere.
Good to know.
Yes, ma'am.
It seems like a lot of the good ideas are being overturned, are being supported at the local court level, at the appeals court level, and then the Supreme Court is overturning common sense interpretations of law. Where do you stand on the Supreme Court and changing it, and how would you change it?
Sure, I'll answer that, and I'll lead into it with this. The Republicans have had a multi-decade plan to take over our local government, for starters. If you look in Colorado, we're a blue state, but Republicans hold the majorities of county commissioners, of local seats. They understand that grassroots level. They understand what it's like to get people in at the very bottom so that you can feed them to the top. They have worked to pack the Supreme Court. They have worked to weaponize the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court poses a fundamental threat to our democracy. So my opinion on it right now is like, we need to end the lifetime appointments. What the heck are you getting a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court for, and you can sit on there for 40 or 50 years? That's just not attainable. It's not sustainable anymore. And we could also have the conversation about expanding the Supreme Court, right? It's limited right now, and if we grew the number of folks that were in it, it might help offer a little bit of diversity. but we also we need to work to restrain them because we were never meant to have the judicial bench in America legislating. And that's essentially what's happening right now. I mean, President Biden put forth a lot of legislation that got shot down. How much legislation have they shot down of Trump's? It pretty much seems that they're his henchmen and they're doing exactly what they were put in there for. So when we take a holistic look at getting big money out of politics and nullifying the overreach of the Supreme Court and these federal agencies, it's not going to be an easy task. It's very daunting. And it's not something that we can just fix through our electoral system. We need people in America to understand that we have the power. You cannot just depend on somebody like me or somebody else running for office. We need to be more active in our civic duty. We need to voice more. We need more civil disobedience. We need more protests. We need to let these people know who has the power, because that's why they work so hard to divide us in America, to make sure that we're not unified, that we're not a strong civilian population that bands together. So I really do think that it does lie in the hands of Congress, but it lies in the hands of the American people to voice their disgust with what's going on. Yes, ma'am.
Scary topic I would bring up, but I really believe in it. I totally 100%, 110% believe in the right for free speech. However, I think we now understand how powerful it is when it's going and being harnessed the wrong way to foster hate, like you were just saying, against our minority groups. My thought is we look at an amendment for that free speech document that states that it is absolutely okay for you to voice an opposite opinion of mine. It is absolutely important that we all have a chance to speak our minds. But when you break the moral code of bringing in an entire group of people and claim they anything, taking a us against them stance, you're violating what America is all about.
Yes.
And Germany, who knows firsthand what it's like to do that, has changed their free speech doctrines. Can we look at what Germany has done and possibly add that to our docket so that we can get a handle on this hatred that's going full bore?
That's an awesome question. It really is, because I think everybody in this room understands how fundamentally important the Constitution is, but we can also reflect and understand the Constitution was ratified in, 1776? It's a little different. Take the Second Amendment, for example. That was developed at a time where there were muskets and not AR-15s. So I'm a big believer that our Constitution does need reframed and reworked. But I want to be honest with you on what that measure would look like. You need 2/3 of the state legislatures in the United States of America to call for a convention of states and to ratify the United States Constitution. Now, when we talk about how passing even simple legislation in Washington, D.C. and throughout the country is super challenging, that is going to be a heavy lift. That is going to be a heavy lift. So when I look at that, I'm very open to that concept. I just want to be realistic with how difficult it would be. And the thing, I think we need to remind ourselves again is there's been a bit of a moral breakdown in America, right? The morality's kind of gone out the window. We all have more of a responsibility. Yes, the First Amendment, you have the right to say whatever you want. You don't have the right to be free of the consequences from what you say. And when you're inciting violence, when you're inciting hatred, however, look where it's coming from. It's coming from the top. That guy who occupies the White House, he has brought people into their comfort zones to be openly racist, to be bigots again, to say mean and hateful things, because look how he treats the free press. Look how he treats our international leaders. Look how he says that Democrats and unaffiliated that disagree with him are vermin, that they're scum. It comes from the top. So we have a responsibility to nullify Trump before we can get any of that done and restore the civility that belongs to America. So I don't want to dismiss your question at all. I'm very open to it. It's just going to be very, very difficult to do it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You alluded to MSNBC and the news that is dividing us. We all started reading about how the big news is big news now. It's controlled by a few top people. And that's a problem. How do we deal with that?
When we look at it, so much of what I see is they want to get clicks. They want to get people to pay attention. So what sells? Drama sells. That's why you don't see, hey, look, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats sat down in Washington, D.C. and had lunch and came up with some really good bipartisan legislation. No, they highlight the screaming match. They highlight the polarity between different communities. I think every problem right now in America right now, even this one, boils down to the corporate consolidation of power. You should never have 6 companies owning everything. We need an independent media, and we need a trust buster. We need somebody that's willing to enforce our anti-monopoly laws and break it up. Because it's even happening right here in Colorado. A parent company that owns Fox News is trying to, buy Denver News right now, and it just goes around and around and around. They continue to follow it up. The one thing that's starting to happen in the echo chambers of TikTok and online social media is there's people, independent journalists that are popping up on there that the truth can't be suppressed in. And more people are turning to independent news because they want to see it free from that political bias. They want to see an on-the-ground assessment of what's going on. So I think, we have a really strong responsibility to restore our faith and support independent journalists in America. And then we have an inherent responsibility to make sure that our federal representatives are enforcing the antitrust and anti-monopoly laws to break up that corporate consolidation of power. They cannot have as much power as they have now, and we need to be very vocal about it. Somebody was in the back raised, and I think I missed you. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just lack of funding, but to me, there's so much fodder for the Democrats to use against the White House right now. And I don't know if you all saw it, watched the World Series, but that ad that was aired by the province of Ontario, all from Reagan's words in his voice, in his own voice, which so angered Trump that anyone would dare to do that he threatened to slap an additional tariff on Canada, America's longest and closest ally, who in my mind is being treated abominably by the Trump administration. And if the Democrats could take that ad and add a little postscript and say just what I said, I think that they could get a really good ad for a relatively small amount.
I think we're seeing that a lot now. That's a great suggestion. I think we're able to use their own words against them in pretty much every regard. I mean, that guy who sits in the Oval Office right now is the biggest hypocrite I've ever met. He's said enough to hang himself. And Democrats, though, the one thing that I really want to see them do this cycle is lower that bar. No more when they go low, we go high. No, we have to fight fire with fire. It's time to get down to their level, because unfortunately, their level of politics, the way that they message, the way that their attack ads work, they're highly effective. And Democrats have dropped the ball on that a little bit, and I think that's a really good idea. You should continue to share that idea, maybe with the DNC and other folks, even here in Colorado, because you're right. I think we could use their own words against them. Sir, did you have a question?
Yeah. Besides yourself, if you could pick anybody for 2028, it would be.
This is such a hard question for me, and I've really had this huge wedge been drawn between myself and a lot of elected folks or politicians in America. I've been let down time and time again. I worked in 2018 on John Fetterman's campaign at the time when he was still lieutenant governor, because I thought that he was a strong independent voice that represented the future of the Democratic Party, only to watch that rug get pulled out from under me so fast that it completely left me disaffected. I watch people, I look at people and I look at what their funding is, right? And all the mainstream candidates that I see right now, you want to know what they do? They all accept super PAC money. They all accept corporate PAC money. They've all been preparing for political runs their entire life. The only way that the Democrats are going to become anything other than a minority party again is to replicate the level of economic populism that Donald Trump has seized on throughout this entire country. And I do not see a populist candidate emerging in the Democratic Party. I see Gavin Newsom, who's standing up to the Republicans and Trump more than anybody else is right now, but he's a corporate affiliated Democrat. I see J.B. Pritzker, who is certainly somebody, in my opinion, who's a billionaire that I don't want to see in office. We need to build that level of working class economic populism, and I just don't see it right now. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to skip on your question because I have nobody. There's a long runway up until that time, and I think that somebody can and will emerge, because what's happening is there is these disaffected, unaffiliated voters that are now coming into the Democratic ranks little by little, because there's a huge political reapproachment going on right now. Republicans that are leaving to become Democrats, Democrats that are leaving to become Republicans, unaffiliated voters that are coming to the middle. I don't know what'll happen, but I know that right now our cookie cutter DNC-backed corporate candidates are not going to be able to stand up to J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio or whoever the 2028 chosen predecessors, or maybe we all get a third Donald Trump term if we don't stand up and start fighting now. So I wish I could answer that question. I'll let the field play out a little bit more and I'll check back in with you in a year. Yes, sir.
Along those lines, what can be done to regulate campaign finance?
Where the heck do we start there? So I've been in this. Like, I have to tell you guys, I have to raise $100,000 by January 1st or I can't afford to stay in this race. How disgusting is that, right? How gross is it? Right now in this race, guys, there's $5 million that's being pumped in from dark money sources, from the APAC donors, from the super PAC donors. They're coming into this race to try to buy it because they think that the seat is for sale, right? We look at repealing Citizens United. That's a huge start, what we could do. Legislatively, it's going to be a really heavy lift. I'm a huge advocate for publicly funded elections, right? Because I hate being a professional fundraiser. Like some of you in this room have probably gotten a call from me before asking me for money. I hate it. I despise it. It's the worst thing. This is what I like to do. I like to engage with people. But guess what a campaign manager tells you? You have to spend 60 to 70 hours a week of calling folks throughout the country for money to be successful. And I despise that. So I would love to see publicly funded elections where every candidate gets given $50,000, $60,000, whatever up front, spend it however you're going to spend it, and that's it. But repealing the Citizens United, getting these corporate interests out of our electoral system, making super PACs illegal. Like super PACs, it's the most disgusting, disturbing thing imaginable, that basically a bunch of companies and dark donors and stuff can contribute to super PACs. They don't have to disclose where that money is coming from, and then the super PACs can support a candidate with $2, $3, $4, $5 million. We need to end the super PACs. We need to restore the power back to the people, repeal Citizens United, and then at the very end of it, the one thing that both major political parties have in common, you know what they're opposed to? They're opposed to ranked choice voting here in Colorado and throughout the country. Because what happens is in our current two-party electoral system right now, the Republican leadership and the Democratic leadership, quite often, I've seen it, get to handpick their chosen and preferred candidates. That is not a democracy. That's everything antithetical to a democracy. So I was a huge champion the other year, even though I thought it was imperfect, when we had the ballot initiative to implement ranked choice voting here in Colorado. I think that ranked choice voting, and I think that really standing up to that corporate money and special interest money in politics is a huge start. And I wish there was a silver bullet for it, because I really feel like we've let it go for too long. And that's why we are where we are. Thank you for your question. Yes, ma'am.
I've been here in Windsor for as long as but I do believe you ran for the same position in 24.
Yes.
What do you feel like, why do you feel like you can win, and what do you feel like you can do to win this?
Sure. It's a great question. So let me start by breaking it down. The 4th Congressional District, 13.5% of the population voters live on the Eastern Plains. 47% of them live in Douglas County, and the remaining area lives in Loveland and Windsor and here in the northern end. This district was gerrymandered beyond control and comprehension. It was drawn to be the sacrificial lamb to the Republicans that they would never lose, where they cropped all the counties and areas into it that nobody wanted to deal with. I lost the primary last year for a multitude of reasons. I don't know if you all know this, when I ran last year, I was the only candidate that got national media attention. We were able to go on MSNBC, on CNN, on Huffington Post. We had this amazing campaign team on the ground. We were touring through all the counties. But this district is huge. And what happened last year was that Lauren Boebert jumped into the race when Ken Buck resigned. We were not expecting that. So what that did was that triggered a once in a lifetime, once in a generation special election here in Colorado. What happened is the party, Jared Polis decided, boom, we're going to hold the special election and the primary election on the same day. Can I tell you how many voters were so confused seeing the same position and the same people over and over again on that ballot and had no idea? John, do I vote in a special election for you? Do I vote in a primary election? So what happened is the Colorado Democratic Party called a special session together where about 100 people sat down on a Zoom meeting in a room, and they said, okay, everybody give your pitch. Why you're going to be the special candidate for the election. I came in second place. I can tell everybody in this room there were a lot of discrepancies on that virtual meeting that we had, okay? I have it streamed, I have it recorded, I didn't have $100,000 to litigate it in court. And what I mean by discrepancies is certain delegates for me, those votes were not counted in that special nomination convention. I always tell people that because of my outspokenness, because of my independent attitude, my values, my willingness to call out corruption on both sides of the aisle, sometimes that earns you an earmark down in the leadership of Democratic circles and backings. So I didn't win it because I wasn't the chosen and preferred candidate. But I can tell you that somebody who was showed up in this district a couple months before that, completely unknown, had no money to go into the general election. I out fundraised her by $250,000 to $300,000. And so what happened is she lost that special election by a huge margin and then went on to lose to Lauren Boebert by an even bigger margin, in my opinion, based on the shift that should have occurred from Boebert. We got trapped up in the partisan dynamics of what happens when a small circle of people get to say, this is my candidate and this is who we want, right? Because then that candidate who won the special election was able to pick up the steam. I had at least 100 people come to me at the beginning of this year at different events that I was at and calling me and saying, John, we really think that you have a good voice and you have something to offer this race again. And so I wanted to get in. I wanted to speak truth to power. I've been traveling this district now for the last 2 years. I've met way more people. You want to know what I've done this time? I've been able to build coalitions that I wasn't able to build last time. I've been able to tap into a lot of the anger, a lot of the discontent that Democrats are feeling right now. Like, hello, we're being failed. Nobody's speaking up for us. I don't want to hear your DNC talking points. I don't want to lose this election again. Like, there are so many dynamics that went into it. And there's so many that are going to come into it this year again. So I tell everybody in this room, I am running on the Democratic ticket. I'm a highly independent voice. I am neither the Washington, D.C. Democrats nor the Colorado Democrats' choice. And that's okay, because this district, 48% of the people that live here are unaffiliated voters. Those are the folks that I want to bring to the table. The people that feel like they're looking on the system from the outside in. The disaffected Democrats that have left our party. The ones that it actually takes building a coalition to win. Because if you only continue to go after the folks that have continually voted straight line Democrat ticket their entire life, we will never win Colorado's most conservative district. So I think I got off on the topic a little bit, but I hope that paints an image of what happened. It was that special election nomination convention. In my opinion, if that would not have happened, we were on track for a primary victory. I built something really incredible with my staffers and the people on the ground last year, and I couldn't let it go to waste. So I'm here to deliver it this time. I'm here to see it through. This time, I absolutely believe we have the ability to win the primary, even though we're standing up this time again to a lot of that dark money that wasn't here last time. So, and we can talk more about that if you like. Thank you for your question. I saw somebody else. Yes.
What are you hearing as you go around Colorado about people's feelings about Lauren Boebert?
Oh boy. So I've actually been surprised to find that, like, she's not completely hiding. Like, she's out in this district a lot, but you wanna know where she is? She's in Prowers County. She's out in Burlington. She's out in Kit Carson. She's out in Fort Morgan. She's out in Sedgwick. She's out in Holyoke. You know what those places all have in common? They're all pretty much echo chambers for Lauren Boebert. She's afraid to come into Windsor. She's afraid to come into Loveland. She's afraid to meet the voters in Douglas County where, God forbid, there might be a little bit of opposition to her. I have heard a lot of, like, Republican-leaning independents that are really upset with what's going on right now. They're upset, like, maybe they have kids that are on SNAP or X, Y, and Z. They're seeing the writing on the wall, so I think that she's bleeding a pretty big coalition. But then I also have to respectfully say that I think there's a lot of people that their political identities are completely intertwined in the divisive politics of Lauren Boebert. I've heard a lot of men out on Eastern Plains tell me, like, I don't care who it is. She's nice looking and I'm gonna vote for her.
Oh,
I had a mom in Bennett tell me literally to my face that she would be okay if her daughter grew up and was just like Lauren Boebert. So there's a lot of cognitive dissonance going on. I do believe that she's bled a lot of voters, but I have heard everything from she's the worst person imaginable to I want my daughter to be just like her and I know she's gonna continue to win. Boebert represents the worst. of our political system. I think that the unfortunate thing about this race is that there's so much emphasis. If you hear some other candidates messaging, it's Lauren Boebert, Lauren Boebert, Lauren Boebert, I'm gonna beat Lauren Boebert this, Lauren Boebert that. She's a good fundraiser, which you need in a campaign. We should invoke her name often. But we have to articulate a bold economic vision that delivers for working families. So you will hear me talk about Lauren Boebert less than anybody, because Lauren Boebert's not the problem. She's a symptom and a byproduct of a broken system, of the stagnant and the rot and the corruption that's in Washington, D.C., and she embodies the worst of what Colorado stands for. I hope that voters are going to come to their sense, but I also know that these voters that will typically vote Republican, they need to be offered something different this time. We cannot do the same thing over and over again and expect different results because we know where we're going to be in another 2 years. Thank you. I know there's more. Come on, keep it coming. Yes, ma'am.
I guess I don't know exactly how to phrase it other than trying to keep that when you have, even within families that are so full, it's like, how can you be drinking this Kool-Aid? We just don't understand. And you try not to get upset with them, and then you even explain. So for our personal, my family, my husband's actually at the Air Guard unit in Greeley. They've pulled the Space Force out of that. They're decommissioning those trucks. They're sending them down to the graveyard. For a while there, we were thinking that the base was going to close. It sounds like there's still going to be a SATCOM mission there. And then, you know, one of my best friends who's in forestry high level, they completely eradicated his target in DC. He told me they could have trimmed 2.5% of the fat, and they shut it down. He's like, I don't know, tell you, Don, the parks aren't going to be able to maintain. And then my other girlfriend from again, I came from the DC area. And so your story really resonated with me, with your background and everything, because I've seen a lot of that, lost my brother to problems. And so it's like, you kind of feel like, how do you even, like, I feel like you can't talk to anybody about it. You feel so, I guess I'm very passionate about it because I hear, like I was saying, so my girlfriend, she was in the Chemical Inspections Agency and they shut that down and offered her a letter to join ICE. And she's like, I'm a chemical inspector, what do you do? And then my cousin is also, she's in the DOJ and she's not being paid right now. And we don't know if we're gonna get a paycheck, you know, every month it's like, or every 2 weeks now, we're like, are we gonna get paid or not? Thankfully, I do have a job as well.
Sure.
But yeah, it's like sometimes it's really refreshing hearing if you're talking about this and getting to the points. Do you have any other advice to, like, I was just with some of these other family members and they're like, isn't it great? We're so safe right now. And I'm just like, I don't even know what to say. When were we not just safe? Like, this doesn't make sense to me. This is horrible right now.
Thank you for sharing all of that with me. I know everybody in this room connects with what we're feeling. Like, we bleed relationships, right? We avoid relationships because of the state. Like, how many people in this room just miss America when you could sit down with family and not talk about politics, when you could not feel the constant weight and crushing weight on your shoulders? My advice is to remember that none of this is organic, right? Exactly what you just talked about. This is what fascists do, right? They come in and they suppress the economy. They suppress people's ability to be able to continue to provide for their family. They divide you between your race, your religion, your political ideology. Then they pull the rug out from under you and you lose your job. And then meanwhile, there's a nice $50,000 sign-on bonus for ICE, $100,000 a year salary, and student loan forgiveness. Well, yeah, to a lot of people that looks good, and you can't really fault them for wanting that, for wanting to provide. I think there's a lot of people in this room that if you were going to lose your ability to keep a roof over your family's head, you might do some things that are antithetical to your belief system. So I try to give those people the grace. The family members, the friends, drawing like important, healthy barriers in place is okay. Like whether it's your dad, your brother, your husband, your wife, it happens. I hear it all the time. But you have to put barriers in place and say, like, please don't cross this. I love you. I don't want to do this over Christmas or Thanksgiving. It's not healthy for anybody. Because it's not healthy. He's not going to change your mind. You're not going to change his mind. You're going to both leave angry. It's going to ruin the holidays and yank that spirit away from you. It's like, just try. Anytime that I go out and I talk to thousands of Republicans every week. And it's really challenging. But when I have this method, when I hear them talking, like I hear you, I validate what they're saying. Like, I hear you, I think you have legitimate concerns. I feel a different way about, and that's okay to express it. But then I always try to divert the conversation based on what I'm hearing. What's something that I know we're going to agree on, right? What's those family values? What's those economic concerns? You know, that like a lot of Republicans, the way that Democrats can formulate common ground with them, Democrats and Republicans at large are opposed to these forever wars that we've propped up, right? The military-industrial complex that has spent trillions and trillions of dollars to invade countries that most of us can't even find on the map, that have no real achievable means and goals, but they support and elevate the defense contractors like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. We have an area to work with those folks, and a lot of those folks believe the same thing. So always, instead of focusing on the difference, my advice is just to find something that unifies them and point it out to them. Be like, hey, we agree on this. We disagree on these three things, but can we admit that we agree on this? And like that's how I try to keep conversations light with people because it's not easy. Thank you.
Knowing that this is likely going to be a question you'll get at some point or something similar to this, how will you stand up to Colorado-based, politically motivated companies? For example, Palantir, which is supporting and helping to fund ICE and do all the terrible things you're doing. How are you going to justify Colorado voters that you're standing against that Colorado-based company while at the same time supporting Coloradans? And I'm not saying that because I don't think you should.
No, I get it.
I'm just giving you a hard question because I want to hear you.
No, I that's why I'm here. I'm here to grow. Like that's why I want everybody to ask me tough questions. And to be honest, that's one of the hardest ones I have to answer, like, especially from a perspective of how do I convince folks, right, that I'm going to go against and stand up to a Colorado-based company. With that company, I would highlight like Peter Thiel. I would highlight who he is as an individual, the billionaires that he is associated with, and then I would look into and highlight like the domestic surveillance apparatus that we've created here in America, that company is going to continue to champion and pioneer, like the flock systems that ICE is using right now to identify people's whereabouts and their movements. Like everybody in this room can agree that like after 9/11, we lost a lot of our fundamental liberties and principles. The Patriot Act was incredibly destructive, and it's paved the way for Peter Thiel and these different companies. Are they called Palantir? Is that their name, or what did you say?
I think it's Palantir.
Palantir, yeah. I mean, those companies are like, they're the future of surveillance, of artificial intelligence-driven warfare, of the suppression of our Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights in America. And so I think highlighting to these people that claim that they love and believe in the Constitution so much, and being able to show them on paper, this is how they're violating your constitutional liberties and your freedoms, and this is why we have to go after them. This is why we have to stand up to them, because they're antithetical to our American values. Because this domestic spy apparatus that they've set up, that's what we're supposed to be using to surveil people in Pakistan and Afghanistan, not American civilians. So I think really trying to meet people in the middle with the facts on it could talk them down from the ledge of it being weaponized, like we're attacking a Colorado-based company.
Good answer.
Thanks. Yes, ma'am.
What are you seeing with the implementation of 2025 through your lens, and what are your thoughts on it?
Project 25?
Yeah, Project 25, sorry.
I mean, there's a tracker online that somebody sent to me the other day, and I think we're about 50% of the way into it. And to be honest, I think they have a lot of opportunity the next year and a half to continue to implement pretty much everything that they want with very, very little resistance. Like I look at Congress right now, the government's been shut down for 33 days. It's shut down because Trump doesn't really need them. He also is using this as a way to help implement 2025 because they wanted to cut SNAP benefits. They wanted to cut Medicaid. And now they have the option to go, hey, look, people don't really need it. Look what's going on. I'm very, very fearful about 25. I think we let the Heritage Foundation and all of these billionaire backers that have supported the Republican operatives get away with murder. And I think that we really undermined, or we really didn't focus enough on what was going to happen if we elected Donald Trump. There were so many folks that didn't show up and vote. And at the same time, I do fault the Biden-Harris campaign a little bit for dropping the ball on articulating a really bold economic vision to meet the moment when so many people are suffering economically. I think that as jobs continue to eliminate themselves, as the federal government continues to be weaponized against folks, that's just going to give them more courage to continue implementing stuff from 25. So I really do think that like 26 is it's our last shot, everybody. I don't even know if it's enough to save our country just through the electoral process anymore. But I know it's the very baseline that we have to retake Democratic House control not with the cookie cutter candidates, but with the next generation of folks that are stepping up, people that aren't just Democrats in name only, that'll actually speak to everybody. So we really need to win 26, and we need to continue the protests that we're seeing throughout the country right now, the No Kings protests and stuff. The one thing that's doing really well is it's showing people that they're not alone, right? That you don't have to be quiet. Now, I do keep telling people that if we continue to hold signs and say, hey, no Kings and X, Y, and Z, that's not really a protest, that's a parade. A protest means that you don't dismantle or disband until your means or your asks are achieved. We're not setting anything in stone. We need to start getting more aggressive. And I think that we're in for some really, really dark times, and Americans are going to have a lot of collective resistance to wage to stand up to stop Project 2025, because I think we're past the point where it can be electorally resisted entirely. So sorry if that was a little bit of a word salad answer, but it's a tough one.
Yeah, it is a tough one because I hear you. It looks as if the way we're going, it's going to be fully implemented. And the question then is, how in the hell do we come back from that?
That's $1 million question. I read a lot of history, and so like I find comfort in the fact of knowing like we're not going through this alone. Like we're not the first civilization in the history of the world that's gone through exactly what's happening right now. I mean, there are so many parallels between what's happening in America and what happened in Germany in the 1930s, right? They're taking the playbook from the dictators throughout history. I used to talk to my grandparents a lot about what they experienced from the fascism in Italy, and it's eerily reminiscent to what we have today. So we have history as a guide. You know, we can see that it's never going to be easy, but that we can rebuild. We can rebuild from everything, and I think that America is, if we don't get our act together, I think we're heading for not just an economic collapse, but a political collapse, unlike anything we've seen in our lifetimes. Sorry to leave on that dark note. Yes, ma'am.
Well, you mentioned Medicaid just for a second, and I wanted to ask, and I'm not clear on the answer or the status, but my understanding is that as Colorado has set itself up, we don't take as much federal funding as we could or should have early on. So the cuts that we've received really have impacted us because we weren't prepared to lose what little we were getting. How would you change that?
Question. A lot of that, so I have a lot of friends at the state legislature. I've been involved in Colorado politics. I have to call it out and say exactly like it is. The Democrats have had unilateral control of Colorado for what, a decade plus, maybe a little less than that if you look at their control of the Senate. There's a lot of fiscal mismanagement that happens at the state government level, okay? And Colorado is home to numerous billionaires. We have a very high concentration of them. And I've been very disaffected by Jared Polis with all his wealth and the amount of money that he sits on. And people like him and John Hickenlooper and these people that I consider part of the Democratic establishment are also part of the problem, because they like to suppress the conversation when we talk about a progressive taxation system, about when we talk about taxing these billionaires and funding our state and our educational institutions. Colorado is down here with education funding. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's like, I think we have to hold those folks accountable for it. As far as like what we're doing from the federal government, how we're bringing funds into our state to support that, like, in a sense, I think we need to get away from relying on those federal funding principles. Like, look where the money is coming from in America. It's coming from the blue states. It's not coming from the red states. And I like that, Joe Biden used to talk about that. Like, oh, when a natural disaster happens or whatever, like, I don't ask you what your party's affiliation is. Like, we ask you where the money, where the money is going to help the most, and we send it. Like, we've gotten away from that. I would rest most of this responsibility right now on the budget deficit and the shortcoming with the Colorado State Legislature. I've seen a lot of reckless spending that didn't really pan out to what it was supposed to be. So I think that we need to also place an emphasis on our local representatives. Who's in the Denver State Capitol? What are they advocating for? How are they fully funding budgets, and are they doing it appropriately?
Second to that is the influx of people coming to Colorado, and how our infrastructure isn't really set up to accept that many people coming in. So if we aren't taking care of the people we already have, well, how do we navigate that?
You're right, Colorado probably grew too fast. We've slowed down a lot now, but I just read the other day that the median price of a home is $650,000, that the median price of childcare is $20,000 a year or so. I don't know what we do, but when I'm out in the rural parts, for example, like their infrastructure is falling apart. They don't have access to high-speed internet. They don't have access to clean drinking water. There's a lot of folks with really, really dirty water out in the Eastern Plains. The roads are terrible if you've ever driven through Eastern Colorado. My gosh, what I want to ask about that is that big federal spending package, the infrastructure bill. Where is it? Where is it? I get disenchanted with a lot of those federal spending bills because they promise a lot, but then there's really never any oversight of where the funds are being spent, exactly where they're being allocated. The money's there, so I would champion at the federal level to earmark money for an actual like infrastructure investment that's clear on a piece of paper. X amount of money goes here, here, and here towards highways and broadband. And I know that things take a long time to get implemented, but you're right, Colorado has a really long way to go to be able to take care of the residents here and continue to accommodate the folks that are going to continue to move here. Yes, sir.
I'll try to keep it short. But I'm where I understand from news and sources online that the speech is being prosecuted in New York as being sought after by Trump's people. She's the one that charged and indicted Trump and convicted him of multiple felonies that he still has, and the judge just let it go on that. And now basically, with, I've been watching the congressional hearings a little bit here and there, they're making a mockery of that, and his people don't even listen to the Dems authority. So it almost seems like the Democratic Congress doesn't even have any power right now at all. They're not listening to it or doing anything with it. It's like, what do we do? I mean, can they do anything?
Wow.
I'm worried.
No, I think that's
probably scary.
I think we have to acknowledge that right now, unfortunately, there's two separate criminal justice systems, which there has been for a long time. There's always been a tiered criminal justice system where the folks that are poor and can't afford lawyers, they're the ones that do all the time in the prison. They're the ones that experience the worst of it, while the wealthy people get away with all of it. Well, right now, you're seeing just pure retaliation, pure politicization of our federal justice departments, and you're seeing that retaliation. That retaliation is going to continue to grow. No, legislatively, Democrats don't have a lot of control to be able to do that right now. But the one thing that the Democrats have dropped the ball on this cycle is to be an opposition party, you have to refer back to Mitch McConnell and how he treated his opposition. You want to know what his opposition was? I am going to slow Joe Biden everywhere possible. We're not going to not get any of his nominees through. We're going to make sure that we oppose them, that we don't continue to fund the government when they're literally terrorizing our communities and such with race dollars. Like, that's what we need. We need that collective resistance. We need a class of politicians in DC that are willing to call it out publicly, boldly, and stand on their convictions. And I don't see that enough now. And I think you're right to be scared. I think you're right to be scared. We should all be scared, but we shouldn't let that fear paralyze us. We should continue to work towards our goal, which our goal is creating a more just America, a just criminal justice system, nullifying Trump in the next 2 years, eliminating Lauren Boebert, sending the next generation of working class voters to Washington, D.C. to bring voices like that to actually stand up and be a real opposition party again, because that's what it might take. So I don't have the answer what we can do right now, what the Democrats can do, but they need to fight harder, right? They need to fight harder. Yes.
Do you have any recommendations for this current vote right now? We were actually talking about it just when we came in. This is just in residence, since you live here in Sandlights, on your opinion of what you're going to vote for just it's the school district.
The school district and ballot initiatives. So I have
anything we can't see within that.
No, I mean, so both of the propositions that are on right now, I think it's M, and LL. I'm in support of all of those because at the basic fundamental level, without getting into anything, it's about funding our universal school lunch program. I don't think any kid should go hungry. And so that's a baseline for me. Christopher Raleigh is, I believe his name, he's one of the contested school board directors that's running against an incumbent. Chris is a normal dad. I've met him a couple times. He's running not because of to inject that partisan extremism in our school board, but because he wants a responsible, tax dollars being spent. He wants parents to be able to approach him and talk about it. So I would recommend definitely voting for Chris for school director, supporting those two propositions. And then I'm in Severance, so we got the town council votes, and nobody was running opposed, so I didn't give anybody my vote because nobody contacted me or needed my vote apparently. So if people don't reach out to me and I don't know who you are, unfortunately I don't give you my vote. Definitely the school director is important, definitely the props are important to support, and beyond that, that's about my recommendations, unless there was.
So that's what we basically.
Chris is one of the good ones. I think he has a really tough hill to climb, but I want to see people in charge of our school boards that are in it for the right reasons. Not for a stepping stone, not to bring Moms of Liberty or those folks into it, like just to take care of students, which is what it's supposed to be.
Your abandoned something or.
All the way in the back.
I don't have a job in mind, I'm single, no children. But I am started out welfare. I don't know who they are. This is going to teach me about who our school board members are and do right for the job.
That's a great question. So I have to tell you that our school board directors, in my opinion, are not in it for the right reason. Almost nobody that we have on there, in my opinion, like I've showed up to school board meetings. I would recommend doing it. I would recommend showing up to those school board meetings that are listed on the WellRF4 website and just hearing the way that they speak about certain issues. Just typing their name into Google and seeing some of the things that they stand for. I think one area that we really drop the ball on is civic engagement in local elections. I think more often than not, most of us in the room feel like, who am I really voting for and do I really understand? They don't do a good enough job of holding these town halls and bringing it to the voters and informing you about who they are and why you should support them. So I would definitely recommend showing up to the school board meetings. You could give me a call offline. I could give you a little more information about it and direct you to some of their social media pages and websites to learn more. But more often than not, RE4 seems to kind of have this iron grip, and they don't want people that are nonpartisan in those school boards, because we've seen it all throughout the country. These school boards, they weaponize those folks against us. They weaponize it because they have ulterior motives. It's all part of Project 2025. It's all part of Republicans maintaining control over the county commissioners, the school boards, the local elected positions that nobody pays for, or that nobody pays attention to. Because when you start out in those lower positions, it's a lot easier over the years to transcend a state representative and then up to U.S. Congress. So it starts at the very baseline level. Sorry, I can't give you more info.
Are the school board election, I also agree with Christopher Colleen. Our daughter has taught in this district for 20 years. And she said Chris is really engaged in their parent-teacher association. He's very approachable with all the teachers and just a good guy.
We need more of
On the current school board, Karen Trostler is an amazing person. And she will only be there for 2 more years, but I think she is the only not Republican person on board now.
few and far between, right? My mic's about to die, so I'll use it while we have it, but I can yell. Sir, you had a question too, I saw you.
Well, you mentioned civic engagement and the need for citizens to be more aggressive. With the limited time that citizens have, what are the things that we can be doing that give us the most leverage over corporate power? What should we be doing at local level, state level, in Colorado maybe specifically?
Yeah.
It'd be great to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I'll echo that. I guess we did. But I'll echo that and say that, like, as a young person heavily involved in politics, like, I don't talk about it a lot, but I am an elected committee person at the state level for the Colorado Democratic Party. I'm a precinct organizer. My wife's a precinct organizer. Like, we need more civic involvement with the county parties. You want to know the one thing that the Republicans were highly successful in doing? After Barack Obama won, you might remember this thing called the Tea Party movement, right? What they did was they went in and they infiltrated all of their county Republican parties, every position imaginable. And then what they did is, when you control the party, you control who the candidates are, you control who the policies are. The Democrats have not done anything equivalent to that. We have a lot of corporate power within our ranks still because we haven't gotten more people involved at that local level. So I would say, like, it's a great way to get involved with your county Democratic Party, to become a precinct organizer, to have those important conversations with your neighbors, to have a vote of how the money is being spent, to have an oversight of the Democratic leaders here, who they're endorsing, how they're supporting people. Like, unless we control the political system from the inside and out, the political system is going to continue to control us. And you're right. Like, we don't have the time. Amber and I work multiple jobs. We raise 3 kids. People always ask me at events, they're like, why aren't the young people here? Well, the young people are working 3 jobs, right? And then they have a side hustle, and then they're still falling further behind. So like, this system is by design, but like, you're never going to make time unless you just make time, unless you realize how important it is to fight for our future, for our kids, for our grandkids, for ourselves. And we have to get involved with that. And that starts by taking the power from the county parties at that local level, but also being more involved. We have a huge problem in America where a lot of voters don't vote in the primaries. Like, I have folks tell me, John, I'll vote for whoever's on the ticket against Lauren Boebert. That's the problem. If we don't have the strongest candidate on the ballot, that's a very strong public speaker that can talk to the disaffected folks, we're going to lose time and time again. So make sure you're involved at the primary election. Make sure that you're vetting candidates that align with your values, even if it's not me. Make sure that you're getting behind somebody, that you're kicking them $5. Like, that really does help. It starts at the grassroots level. Volunteer for local campaigns that you feel emanate your values. Like, when I talk about the civic engagement, that's what I mean. Get involved with your county Democratic Party. Know who's running in your elections more. Sign up for voter registration drives. That's a huge thing. Go be an election clerk. Like, get more involved with the system. And I know that so many people here don't have the time. I feel that. But Amber and I often remind ourselves, like, if we don't make the time now, we're going to be paying for it in another 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So definitely try to just keep pushing people to get involved. Yes, ma'am.
Where do you stand on same-sex marriage and LGBTQ?
This question comes up a lot, like, and I don't mean to be dismissive of that at all. Like, are we still talking about this? My gosh.
Unfortunately, with this president.
Yes. Like, I do not want to talk about that. I want those folks to be protected, to be safe, regardless of who you love. I have a sister who recently married a woman, and like, we love her. We love her wife. Like, that never even crosses our mind that these people deserve enshrined protections. This conversation should have ended a decade plus ago, and here we are rehashing it over and over and over again. Like, codify it into legislation that cannot be repealed. Like, we need, when we talked earlier about that, like, second Bill of Rights for Americans again, like a revamping of our Constitution. Like, it needs codified into that so that it's not just, oh, this Supreme Court's going to overturn it or this president's going to push back against it. I want folks to be supportive, safe in their communities, regardless of who they love, what they look like, how they identify, and I will be a strong advocate in Washington, D.C. to make sure that happens. Because I look at everybody in my community and my state as equals, and I think that the president that sits in the White House right now looks at everybody as lesser, regardless of who that is. And I'm quite honestly tired of hearing the hatred and the rhetoric behind it. Let's give these people their slice of the American dream. They want to be married, they want to love who they love, they want to identify how they want to identify. And for a party that says that they oppose big government overreach all the time, they sure do love to intervene in women's lives. They sure do love to intervene in LGBTQ folks' lives. Let's leave these damn people alone and stop it with the nanny state politics.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, Lee.
Couple of things. One, why are we not, I went to Milking Public, very impactful.
Yes.
Why aren't we leveraging? Look what happened when they canceled Kimmel. In 3 days, Disney lost $4 billion and boom, he was back. Why are we not leveraging our economic power?
I think there's a lot of fear. So like, I looked at No Kings, both of them, and I thought, could you imagine how powerful they would have been if they were during work weeks? Imagine if Americans shut down the economy for 5 days and said, no, we're not participating in this, you're not getting our money. I mean, they would come crawling back. But I think that people are fearful of it. Like, most people that I talk to can't afford to miss a paycheck. They can't afford to miss a couple hours. We don't have the protections in America like other countries do for their employees. Like,
Which is why boycotts.
Right. Well, and boycotts do work, and you're right. There needs to be a collective conversation about who do you boycott, how do you boycott, make it most effective. And right, it would make a big impact. And I think we do need to leverage that, our economic might a little bit more. And I think you're going to continue to see that grow and grow and grow because people are going to become more desperate. People are going to realize that these No King's Day protests are parades. Like I said, if we don't have actual demands, like that's what a protest is. We demand X, Y, and Z, and we're not leaving or backing down until that happens. Now, maybe it's not achieved, but like I always look back to like Occupy Wall Street, right?
Yeah.
Everybody remembers that. Like that was a pretty effective, powerful movement. Like that was reported on throughout the entire world. Well, right now we have what? Probably estimated 3 to 4% of the population participating in these No King's Day protests, but they have to evolve. If we don't evolve into a collective resistance, into organized civil disobedience, and I don't mean violent, I just mean civil disobedience. Like that's what it's going to take. So like I hope that the organizers from these events, and I hope that Americans continue to see our collective strength when we band together, and I hope that we exercise our economic muscle a little bit more. I think a lot of it is just driven by fear, misunderstanding, maybe not having the time to do so, and a lot of it, I think, people are able to use those No Kings protests as like a big valve release. Like, let me just let out all my anger. And then they're a little less angry in the days after. And then we have to get back to doing it again. It's like we have to be more than just a valve release. We have to actually move that into motion.
When,
Thank you.
what is your number one priority in Washington?
My number one priority is to deliver an economic bill of rights. I said last year during the 2024 primary, and I was the only candidate that said it then. We all went around when we were interviewing at the media stations. What's the most important thing? It's the economy. It's affordability. Other people said that it was women's rights, although they're incredibly affordable, important. Although other people said that it was foreign policy, which is incredibly important. If people don't have the economic means to provide housing, healthcare, food, then nothing else matters. Like that's it. That's the baseline of like, we need to build a country again where there's a strong, thriving middle class, where there's not such this inexplicable income inequality. Like I want to help neutralize that. So for me, the economic bill of rights is to get big money out of politics. Thank you. Get the big money out of politics to make life more affordable for people again. And then we can start to look at some of these other institutions that have been failing us. But it really is centric around economic affordability. And for me, that involves like kicking BlackRock and these big private equity groups out of our housing market. Like they're swallowing up houses, and that's why they're so expensive. Things like that. That's really our $1 trillion that goes to the Pentagon every year, and they haven't been able to pass an audit in the last 20 years. Like we need to make sure our money is being invested in America. I believe that healthcare should be a basic fundamental human right. I don't believe for one moment that the wealthiest nation on the planet can't afford guaranteed healthcare for all of their citizens. But when we continue to dump billions and billions of dollars into Iraq and Afghanistan, and now we're bombing pirate ships basically off the Venezuelan coast, we're airstrikes in Iran, it goes on and on, it never stops. We're going into Nigeria, I did just hear that. Because
$40 billion to Argentina.
we gave $40 billion to Argentina. Like we have a priority problem. We have an empathy problem. We don't have a lack of funding problem. And that's really what I want to see change out in America.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Speaking of healthcare, which I also agree should be a human right.
Imagine that. Yeah,
For sure. Do you have a sense of when all the states are getting their letters? I've heard that the reason why the green came out early against those premium increases because Georgia was the first state to receive their letters. Do you have a sense, is that all happening this week? Because once people get those letters in their open enrollment, which is, I would think, the majority of citizens, that's gonna be sticker shock. No?
Yeah, I don't know exactly all the states. I know Colorado letters have been sent out. Like those subsidies are expired. And isn't it weird? Can we just acknowledge how freaking weird it is that some of us find ourselves agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Yes.
What the heck is going on in America right now? Right. And that's when it becomes important to people, when it affects them personally.
That's why I want to see those letters. Put everybody.
I think.
So I feel for them.
Right.
Hoping it will wake them up.
I think it'll wake a lot of people up. I think it's going to continue to collapse under its own weight. I think that they want it to fail. Like they've hated Obamacare since its inception. So if you can just allow allow the subsidies to expire and have it basically implode on itself, have people's healthcare expenses triple this year in an economy that's so brutal where people can't afford the constant increase, it's going to crumble under its own weight. I don't know if the letters have been distributed throughout the entire country. I know they've been distributed in Colorado. I know they've been distributed in Georgia, like you talked about. And I think we're just there, unfortunately.
Yeah, I should, we haven't gotten the letter.
Yeah. Do you have a question?
I mean, you have to go, it's the fundamental difference between you and the other candidates for the primary.
Can you ask that one more time, just to make sure?
What's the difference between you and the other candidates for the primary, like Laubacher?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, good question. No, it's a good question. I love to contrast myself to these folks. So, one, I'm the only working class candidate. Neither of those hold jobs. They haven't held jobs in the last couple of years. How many people in this room can afford to not work for 1 or 2 years, right? A lot of people that we get into Congress, respectfully, they're retired, or respectfully, they're very wealthy, right? They're sitting on an inheritance, X, Y, and Z. That's why we have that system, because it's almost impossible for working class people like me to continue to work 65 hours a week like I do, take care of my family, travel the district, and run for office. So the biggest contrast is I am the only working class candidate in this race. I'm also the candidate that, at this point, with the other two primary opponents, that's raised the least amount of money. I've raised $75,000, and I'm very proud of that. Do you want to know how I've done that? By sitting on a phone, calling people throughout the country, throughout Colorado, telling them my vision, offering them my economic solutions, and asking them, hey, can you donate money? My average donations have been $20. $20, and I've raised $70,000 like that. That's actual grassroots support. I have a very high ratio of in-state Colorado donors. A lot of Laubacher's money is coming from the bundling super PAC donors, from the mega donors, and coming from out-of-state money. Even Colorado Newsline just reported that. Yeah, you raised $4.5 million, and where did it come from? I'm not supported by the Washington, D.C. Democratic establishment or the Colorado Democratic establishment. I'm an independent choice. I'm an independent voice for them. The only one raising 3 kids in this brutal economy. I keep coming back to that. And respectfully, I'm the only one that didn't plan to run for office my entire life and paved the way for that. Like, I'm running for office because I'm a normal working class dad. Because when I look around Washington, I see way too many damn lawyers and not enough people like me that have worked in the machine shops, that have worked, the really tough jobs and navigated that. So like for me, I'm actually building a grassroots campaign. Like I'm connecting with everyday folks throughout the district in the Eastern Plains in the really difficult areas. I'm not funneling all my money just to paint contrast for you guys, right? And please don't take this as me slamming anybody, because that's not what I'm here to do. Eileen Laubacher does not live in the district. How do you live in a district? How do you represent a district that you don't live in? She's barely visited any of our communities. She was completely unknown 6 months ago and came in and raised $4.5 million. Do you know how you raised $4.5 million? From the same corrupt money pipelines that have given us Donald Trump on a silver platter twice. There was this national movement where all of a sudden these influencers are posting her online before we've ever even met her. Oh, Eileen's the candidate. I go to Democratic dinners and Congress people from DC are saying, yeah, when Eileen goes to Congress, knowing that there's 2 other candidates in that same room, they control the narrative, they control the media, they control the money. Washington, DC gives you access to those lists to raise $4.5 million. So the biggest contrast is that I'm not being supported by that corrupt establishment. I'm being supported by the people in Colorado on the ground, by people throughout the country that are too damn tired of looking at this political system from the outside in rather than the inside out. And I'm also going to stand up to the military-industrial complex. I feel very concerned about Eileen's connection to the military-industrial complex, somebody who has been in the military their entire life, somebody whose husband is a multimillionaire through investments in Lockheed Martin, which I've worked in the defense industry before. I've made a bolt for $7, and I've seen Lockheed Martin turn around and sell it for tens of thousands of dollars to the United States government. I worry about people that are injected into this race, and they seem to have all this national support and the big money coming into it. I've worked on enough campaigns to tell you people organically don't raise money like that when they're not connected in their district. So for me, like the contrast is I'm working class. I'm building an actual grassroots campaign. I'm not willing to cozy up to that power circles that a lot of people need to get elected into office. And I'm the only candidate running on like an economic populist vision. Like when I say what is a populist vision, populism is why Donald Trump has won as many times as he is. Because he stands up there, even though he's part of it, even though his message is bullshit. He tells people the elites have been screwing. The elites that live in DC and run all these corporations, now everybody knows damn well he's part of it, right? But you can't talk about, oh, I'm a populist and I'm standing up to these economic elites while you cozy up to every Colorado Democratic Party elected official, while you cozy up to every big money player in Washington, DC. My thing is I'm willing to lose before I'm willing to compromise my values along the way. And some people that I've met throughout this race, they would compromise their values in a heartbeat and sell anybody out in order to win. And that to me is part of what's destroyed our political system. I've worked from the grassroots up with really, really important people that have run for office. I've watched people lose while maintaining their values. And I've watched people win while sacrificing all of them. And I remember looking at them one time in the eyes and saying, I never want to give up my values. So I'm the only working class working class person in this race. And I think that that's a huge differentiation at a time where Democratic politicians at large are being rejected. I'm the only person that's not willing to recite DNC Washington talking points. I'm willing to go out into my community, get to know those folks, get to know what the issues actually are. And then I'm the only person that's willing to stand up to corruption on both sides of the aisle. Like I told you earlier, being very embedded in the Democratic Party, I've often earned a reputation for being a little rebel-rouser, right? I make a little bit of good trouble because I don't believe that just because you're a Democrat, that we should let you get away with any less than we would let Republican officials get away from. So I'm willing to stir up the pot, speak truth to power, and bring my working class values to DC.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely.
Grateful for or like
No. So Jason Crow is head of the DCCC, which is the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. He recruited her. The Vote Vets is sponsoring her, which is a super PAC. They're a dark money super PAC. I love veterans in Congress, but Vote Vets takes dark money and they funnel it to candidates. They did it to Jessica Killen here in Colorado Springs, who's running for the 5th congressional district. She didn't live in the congressional district either. She bought a multi-million-dollar house there. She was Kamala Harris's husband's former chief of staff. They steamrolled her down here, let her raise $750,000 overnight. If you look at it, they're both using the same consultants on their campaign finance reports. So what my point earlier with Eileen, no, I don't believe she's taking Republican money, but I believe that those pipelines, those connected corporate apparatuses of money that are being fed to only certain candidates throughout the country is exactly what's delivered us Donald Trump on a silver platter 2 times. Because you can't take money from the very same system that screwed Americans. It sold us into fascism. You have to completely opt out from that method. So if you look at her campaign finance reports, yeah, it seems all like it's organic, it's grassroots. All the unitemized donations, what these folks do, these wealthy donors that are connected to AIPAC, they could easily write you a $6,600 max out check. They don't do that because then their name goes on your FEC report. If I take $99 or whatever it is, $59.99, and I donate that to you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, guess what? You'll never see my name on your campaign finance report. I know this game because I've been a part of it. So when I see somebody raise that money and I see the vast amount of unitemized contributions on their report, it's very obvious what's going on. So that, I hope that clarified for you.
Just a quick follow-up to that. If, I don't want to change anything,
Don't
but
change
what
that.
you support? So at the end of the day, we need Lauren Boebert out of here. Would you, if you felt there was a candidate who was speaking to your values, if there was a candidate you felt like they were probably going to be more successful for whatever reason, would you put your energy behind supporting that individual in primary to go against Boebert?
It's a great question and it comes up all the time. And I'm usually one that answers it a little different. So I'll start by telling you, yes, absolutely. If there was a candidate that shared my values, that had a good vision for the district, that was doing things the right way, that I saw could beat Lauren Boebert, absolutely. I'd throw my weight, my energy, my donors, my support network, my passion behind that person. As of right now, I have not committed to supporting anybody else because I answered this at the last forum I went to. I said, I have a prerequisite for that. One, we have to not treat each other like Republicans throughout this process, right? We run meaningful campaigns where we highlight our own values and contrast ourselves and don't insulate ourselves from the voters to allow the primary voters to actually select who it is. Like, I will support people if we share values, if we treat each other respectfully, but I'm a huge person that follows the money. I will always look at a candidate where they've accepted money from, and I do not support candidates that accept money from the same corrupt money pipelines that I talked about. So to me, it's a very, very complex situation. I also want to beat Lauren Boebert at all costs. I mean, heck, I put a lot of my time and effort into doing that, and I will always support somebody that shares my values, but I will never support somebody that's antithetical to those values. And that's just a generic statement across the board, not just specifically this race. So yeah, if we get there, let's get there together. Yes, sir.
So in the event that you were to flip the seats, but the national shift doesn't change enough to, change the color of both the Senate and the House, how effective do you see your message over the next couple of years without that? And then secondly, how do you prevent Colorado from being further penalized by the current administration over the next couple of years?
That is a strong question. Preventing us from being penalized, how much we can do that right now. You're right, and I would go in as a freshman Democrat that flipped a traditional conservative seat, and if we don't flip Congress and the Senate, how effective would I be in passing a lot of that legislation? I think that's a real concern. And I think that the one area that Democrats that I see really drop the ball on is using their voice, right? Using their voice to project power. Like what I would do going in on every mainstream media throughout the country, night after night after night, drilling a message of those working class values, economic populism, standing up for progressive values. And then I would also work. Once you're in office, it's so much easier to raise money. It's so much easier to cultivate the next generation of Democrats and folks that are rising to federal office and support them. So I would create a strong network where I recruited, trained, attracted people that didn't plan to run for office their entire life, have them run for office and help elevate them along the way. One of the things I get really disappointed in is the folks in DC right now, when they see somebody really good, like I've connected with a lot of really good campaigns, and they drop the ball on getting involved when you need it the most. Well, let's wait and see how much money this person raises. Well, get in early, back them up, stand on them, get them into office, because you're right. If I'm just one person in Washington, D.C. that helps flip the Congress, I'm powerless. But if a bunch of us continue to get in there and get elected, supporting candidates at the local seats is huge to me. I've worked on numerous campaigns throughout my life, and I would love to just continue to cultivate that network of candidates that's running for office and support them. And I would love to push back against the narrative. Too often we let the Republicans just completely dominate the narrative on mainstream media. Some Democrats go on there and they're coming out swinging, and that's what we need more. So I would come out swinging on national media, and I would really work to make sure we get the next generation of good working class people elected in D.C. All the way in the back.
Could I also suggest on that point that you not just limit yourself to mainstream media, because you're preaching to the choirs there, right? Can you do like a Substack or something to get to the younger people?
Absolutely. No, I would do everything. So I'm heavily active on TikTok and Substack and pretty much every social media platform you can imagine now, and your amplification goes through the roof when you're an elected official. But I say the mainstream media because I know the amount of people that touches, and it's the visual optics of somebody being on MSNBC or CNN. Like the visual optics of seeing those time and time again. Like I look at James Talarico's running for Senate in Texas. Like he's doing a phenomenal job, like not letting Republicans dictate and guide the message. Like I place a lot of responsibility with the corporate media for letting Trump get away with murder. I mean, they were on Joe Biden and other folks for literally everything. And now it's like you just let Trump suck all the oxygen out of the room.
Right,
so,
that's why I just don't think it works that much anymore.
And it very well might not. I think it's a holistic approach to that outreach. Thank you for the questions. It's awesome. Anybody else?
I see you doing town halls down in Douglas County. That's actually where we focus on. And so, as I was just seeing, I only see the Larkspur and Parker.
Larkspur and Parker right now, we're going to be scheduling a Highlands Ranch and a Castle Rock soon.
So when you be somewhere Highlands Ranch to get them involved to go down there.
Yep. We're going to get everywhere. So if you just follow that events page of social media, they're going to continue to pop up here over the next couple of months. We're also organized. There's a group that I've spoken with that's looking to organize a debate. Because the one thing that we did really poorly last year when somebody asked about the election was we insulated ourselves from the general public, like beyond. Like there was no debates. Like how many people during last cycle knew anything about your candidates that were running to take on Lauren Boebert? That is a Democratic failure. So like we need to rely more on the independent organizations to get all of us candidates in the room and let us what the Democratic Party usually does is they sit you down at a table and they have a forum and they go down the line and they say, tell us about how you would handle water rights in Colorado, boom, boom, boom. Tell us how you feel healthcare, boom, boom. And that's great. That gives people like a 10,000 foot perspective. But when you can debate somebody, I don't mean bash them, attack them, be mean to them. I just mean rebuke what they're saying. Contrast yourself to those folks. That's what builds a strong and robust primary. So that's something that we're really working on as well, getting an actual debate out in front of the general population so that they can compare all the candidates in a row and make their own effective choices. Because I'm a huge believer that even if I'm not the one being selected, at the very least, if we insulate ourselves from voters, that's negating our duty to uphold a democracy. That's antithetical to a democracy, and we're really bad at that at the party level. So I really hope that that continues to materialize and that you all will get to see us in a room side by side. They're organizing a forum through Indivisible NoCo in February. I'm hoping they're going to have this debate in early January. And then the thing that I want to tell everybody in here before I let you get away soon is like Colorado has this really crazy ballot access process. Most people don't even understand how it works. You either have to go spend a bunch of money or collect like 3,000 signatures from voters throughout the district to get on the ballot, which is not the common method. That's usually what people do when they know that they can't win the grassroots level support. They go out and they pay a consultant $100,000, they collect all the signatures, and you get on the ballot. I'm going through the caucus and assembly process. And what that is you show up as you have to be a registered Democrat by February 1st of next year to participate in this. There's a lot of unaffiliated voters that participate in it. They change their party affiliation to be able to come over and be a part of it. Because even though we have open primaries, you can't be an independent and show up to the county caucus. So the first thing you do is you'll show up when you live in Weld County, and March 1st or whenever it is, dates are coming soon, you show up and you show up to what's called a precinct caucus. And you basically just show up there and you meet your neighbors and you talk about issues, and then they elect you as a delegate to go on to what's called the county assembly. Then they assemble all of the congressional candidates, all the statewide candidates, and everybody, and they put you in a room with the delegates. And the delegates have to select who their candidate of choice is. You can win the primary without ever having it go to a ballot. Because you have to have 30% of all the delegates in the district to be able to qualify for ballot access. So one of our biggest goals this year is to be able to run a really strong caucus assembly delegate process. We've recruited unaffiliateds from throughout the state. We have a lot of really good Democratic voters that are going to support us because we can knock other candidates off. And that's not saying that we don't support democracy, but what happens is when we're all trapped into this big primary battle, what are we doing? We're all raising money independently, we're all kind of fighting at each other, and we're losing goal of the focus and the vision, which is to defeat Lauren Boebert. So I always say, we should make big choices in the caucus and assembly process. And we're all going to make our case why we think we're the strongest candidates there. So anybody who wants to be more involved with it this year, I would highly recommend showing up to the Weld County Precinct Caucus in early March. A week later, it's going to be the county assembly, and then you move on to the congressional assembly. So you would have a total of about 6 hours of your time to dedicate. The Weld County ones they usually do in person, the rest of them they usually do online. So the Zoom thing can be kind of a pain in the butt, but we're trying to push them to do it in person. So that's something really important that a lot of voters don't fully understand how important it is. And I don't remember how off tangent I got, if there was a question or what that came from.
What are your top 3 needs for your campaign right now on the timeline, what you need them?
Top 3 needs, I'll be candid, it's money. I need money. I need phone bankers and postcard writers, because sometimes that's just how we have to reach voters. We send them postcards, we call them, we call people to recruit them for the delegate assembly, we call them to ask them to contribute $20. We try to just grow our volunteer base. And then the third would be to just attend our events with us. A strong campaign is a campaign that usually has a lot of people around them. And for example, we've done all the parades throughout the district this year, and I'm so stinking proud. At every single parade, we had the largest crew of people with us. And that's something that money can't buy. It doesn't matter if you have $5 million, it doesn't matter. When you have grassroots supporters show up in t-shirts, march with our family, our kids at parades, talk to voters, hand out our information, that projects strength. And that's something that our campaign does really good, and something that I'm looking to grow. So it's really wide open. I don't want to box anybody out. I tell people, if you can volunteer 1 hour a week or 10 hours a week, we're not going to lock you out. There is something for you to do. But unfortunately, money is the biggest thing. I ask everybody who supports us just to donate $20 if you can, because that's how I fund my campaign and keep it rolling month to month. And if I don't hit that $100,000 mark by January, I might have a very difficult time staying in the race. But postcards, calling folks for us, talking to your neighbors, recruiting us, directing them to our website, sharing our social media posts. It's really a cumulative package of what we need right now. And thank you for asking that. And just so everybody knows, you can go to my website, Padora for Congress. We have donation envelopes over here. You can donate via check. You can go to our website and donate via ActBlue, which is a secured server, despite what some of you hear. You can follow us on all of our events over there. You can follow us on social media. But talk to your neighbors. Take my business card. If you didn't get to ask your question today or you felt embarrassed to, take my business card and call me. I'm one of the only candidates that has my cell phone on there. I don't have my staffers answer my phone calls. They answer the calls from the media and people inviting us to events, but if it's people in the district, they have my cell phone on there. You have my personal email on there. Reach out to me. Keep me connected to what matters to you in your own community. If you have folks that you want me to call for support, if you want to invite me to a block party or you're having a gathering on your back porch with 10, 20 people, that's what I do. So just keep me involved. Keep moving along towards our common goal of defeating Lauren Boebert. Get more involved at the primary level. Get involved with campaigns that you believe in. Pay attention to what's going on. Learn more about all the candidates. And keep supporting democracy. And thank you for taking time out of your Sunday to be here. And I hope that everybody learned a lot and walks away at the very least feeling good today. Good.